It's good to see everybody. The world has changed greatly since we were here last time. With me tonight is our senior energy engineer, Craig Washburn, and he's going to walk us through the recommendations that we have. If you don't mind, I hope we don't have a PowerPoint, but does everyone have the packet in front of them? I'd like to start on page 2. It says 2 at the bottom. So just our progress today. Let me just say during COVID hit right in the middle of our detailed technical audit, and your staff has been amazingly accommodating and flexible. We had folks having to be in the buildings, and just the professionalism, and just thank you to Seth and Shannon and Melissa and everyone else who sent us drawings that we needed when we weren't able to be on site. But since the time we were here, we toured every single one of the buildings, the schools multiple times. And so our project was, our goal basically, if you turn to page 3, was to do a very comprehensive approach and find out what your facility improvement needs were and energy conservation measures. We were trying on page 3 to incorporate as much of the work that you all are needing to do caused by deferred maintenance, figure out how much energy savings that we could find to pay for this work, and then present you with our recommendations. So a lot has happened between February and now. On page 4, you will see a rough order of magnitude. Throughout the process, it's been very collaborative. We've met with Mr. Hickson and Seth and Shannon, and just throughout the steps, we did a rough order of magnitude and said, this is what we're seeing at this time. Nice round numbers. But as you can see on page 4, that's a lot of work. It turned out to be around $18 million, rough estimate, of the work that we were looking at addressing. So if you turn to page 5, after walking through exactly what the scope of work was with them, they determined what was top priority for them based on the data we provided to them. So on page 5, you'll see that this is our final recommended project. And this is based on what we heard from your school personnel, and then what we were able to find in energy savings. As we were going through COVID, we did add bipolar ionization, which it helps with indoor air quality, and you're going to hear Craig talk about that and what that means for your school system. And then there were a few other things when we talked to the engineer and found the Tennessee code that we had to add to the project. So the final recommended project that you see on page 5 is roughly $13.7 million worth of work. And it addresses volunteer in Cherokee High School almost in its entirety of infrastructure improvements from electrical to HVAC. So I am going to turn that over to Craig, who, if you'll flip the page there, is going to start with the recommended project and the scope of work. If anyone has any questions, feel free. We were just trying to move along and touch the highlight.
Thank you guys for not making me wear a mask. I mumble enough without the mask on, so for the sake of being able to understand me, this is probably the best for everybody. If you go to page 6, one thing that was made abundantly clear to us is that we need some help in the high schools. That was we heard that over and over from pretty much everybody we talked to going through and developing this project. So we have centered our project around the high schools and their needs. What we're looking to do is replace the deteriorated ductwork. You guys have ductboard, and that's only supposed to last about 20 years. You guys have had it there for 40 years. Long story short, it's got holes in it, and you're basically air conditioning above the ceiling right now. So along with that, we're looking to replace all the rooftop units that are original to the school, or that are the original school with the rooftop units on them that are attached to that ductboard. We're looking to replace that. Along with that, all the little units that you see outside serving each individual classroom, looking to replace those with barred units, which you all are very familiar with. You heard Kathy mention bipolar ionization. I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. It's something we would look to do regardless of COVID, but with COVID coming on, it makes even more sense now. And I'll talk about that when we get to in a couple of slides. Building automation system controls. You've got some controls in the building right now. After our project, you'll have a lot more of your building under our controls footprint. You'll be able to diagnose and do a lot more things with this control system. And the next page. I'm not going to read all this to you. Your duct board is very old, has holes in it. There's some energy savings associated with replacing it. Unfortunately, it's very hard to quantify unless you know exactly how much you're leaking into the ceiling. But going in and replacing this with metal ductwork, you'll realize some savings. It's just hard to quantify at this point. Moving on to page 8, you can see this is a chart with recommended service life. If you look directly in the center of it, you'll see the ductwork. They recommend that you keep that for 30 years. I've actually seen metal ductwork last more like 40 years. The type of ductwork you have in there right now is probably close to 15, 20 years. It's actually lasted well over 40. Past time for it to be replaced. Bipolar ionization on slide 9. I promise not to get very deep in the science here, but basically what this does is it sends charged ions out in the airstream, and it binds to dust particles, makes them bigger, allows them to be caught by the filter, so it's actually cleaning your air as it's being distributed through your rooms. A side benefit, and this is very relevant now, is that it also binds itself to virus particles, allergens, mold, a lot of different items in there that can really affect the indoor air quality and helps break them down. And without getting very deep in the science, there's been a lot of studies out there that have proven the effectiveness, and we are looking to incorporate that and get each rooftop unit and a little package unit that we're looking to replace. The switchgear on the next slide is essentially, for those of you who don't know what switchgear is, it's kind of like the breaker box that you have in your house. This is a lot bigger, a lot more commercialized. It sits out on the pad in your high schools. And this is original to the building, and all the parts in it are now obsolete. As things start breaking, you will not be able to replace it. So that's one of the first things Shannon told us is we've got to have new switchgear in these high schools. Shannon could share with you a lot of horror stories. Apparently you've got some suicidal squirrels that like to go and chew wires and different items in there. So definitely time to replace that. And this is going to be the critical path of the project, because as soon as we get up and moving, we need to have engineers on site designing this to make sure the new system can go in where the old system sits now. So very critical that we get that started very early. Next slide, I'm on page 11. The LED lighting, this is something we did prior to our involvement at a company that went through and looked at all your schools, interior and exterior, and recommended LED lighting, which, for those that don't know, it's the latest and greatest in technology, the most energy efficient. And incorporating this will get you state-of-the-art in your lighting system. We've incorporated their study essentially into our project. Controls optimization is part of the HVAC upgrade we're doing at the high schools. We're going to add little controls components here and there to make sure that we are able to implement all the energy savings features that are available to these units. So this is purely an energy savings item, and also it'll allow your maintenance staff to better control your systems remotely. Next slide there, the cooling tower replacement. This is something Shannon really wanted. He said, hey, I've got 3 cooling towers that need to be replaced in these schools with water source heat pumps. Can you give me one of these? Mount Carmel is my worst one, so if you can get this in there, I'd really appreciate it. So we incorporated this in. As part of replacing the cooling tower, we're also looking to go in and clean up the water loop in the building. Over time, we've got scaling debris in the piping. It goes into your water source heat pumps and clogs up the strainers, which is kind of like a filter, just upstream of the unit itself. Causes compressor short cycle and a lot of nasty things going on. And we look to clean the system out, go to each strainer, flush it out, and make sure you don't have those issues after that project. I've gone through extremely fast on the project scope. Does anybody have any questions before I turn it over to Kathy?
I'm on page 13. Is that good? So when we first presented, we were looking at your current utility cost and then what we can estimate in savings. So right now we're right at around 20%. We're between the 15 and 25% savings that we found in the project. Let me first say, you all are doing a great job on energy efficiency. To get to the next level, you're going to have to make changes with your HVAC equipment because it's so inefficient, and then your LED lighting, and then some controls optimization. So you're doing a very good job now with what you have, and then to get the savings requires some infrastructure improvements. As Craig said, there is energy efficiency, there's savings tied to your ductwork, but because we guarantee the savings, we can't measure and verify how much you're spending cooling the attic. So we would never put that down because we have to guarantee it. There is additional savings. We just don't know how much. So on page 14, just some simple math, around $300,000 in energy savings. And I say around because we haven't worked with EESI yet, and TAC will have to look at it and scale modeling. So that's not finalized until we work with them. Right now, something extraordinary happened with the EESI funding. They changed their interest rates to compete with the bond market. So now up to $5 million, it's half a percentage point. And just, so in the most that you can borrow from them is $5 million. And so we are right there with the energy savings that we're calculating. So that does leave, if you are looking at our recommended project, a balance over and above what the energy savings will pay for. I know the next slide is very small print. If you're like me, you need my glasses, but we always break everything down by school so you can see where the energy savings is coming from. We do this for two reasons. In case you decide, the school, it's yes, we know we need to do it. We just we don't have that much in our budget right now to do this. So slide 15 is broken down school by school.
Your energy and operational savings, like Bulls Gap School, is $19,897.
Correct.
For 1 year?
Yes, 1 year. So one-time cost, energy and operational savings annual. Yes. Annual dollar amount. Yes. We do it like that. That's how EESI wants to see it, is every year how much your savings is going to be. So we break it down.
Well, if I'm understanding it correct, I'm looking at the third column. It's got $19,897.
Yes.
That's a savings in one fiscal year.
In fiscal year, yes, sir.
Then we come over to the savings breakout. Energy annual dollar amount is $17,887.
Correct.
And that would be for a fiscal year also.
It's the total. Yes. So we totaled it in the energy and operational savings. And then if you go all the way out to the right, we broke it out. What's the difference between the energy savings and the operational savings? And we only did that for lighting.
Okay. Gotcha.
We have a 5-year parts and labor warranty on all the equipment, but we did not use any operational savings tied to it at all.
Good to know that.
It's a 10-year warranty.
The 10-year warranty?
It is a 10-year warranty.
And I can write that down.
Yes, you can write that down. I've checked
How about
everything.
15?
I know we can't go 15, but 10 years. So yeah.
Push come to shove, you might give us 12. Just
Okay. I'm always wanting to say yes. I'm always wanting to say yes, but
I'm sorry.
he's like, it's like bad cop, good cop. I always want to say yes, and Craig's like, no, can't do that. Can't do it. That's right. He keeps me. Yeah. So I'm not trying to rush through it, but slide 16. This is your project. This is you hired us to find the data for you and bring back our professional expertise recommendation. Even though Shannon brought these things to light, once you go out and look at them, it's pretty obvious. I don't know how you're keeping some of these quick here working at this time, but the problem the difficult time we had as trained was we could not recommend that you replace your ductwork and then not replace your units because you're not helping yourself either way. So anyway, so it's up to you now to make a decision on what you want the project to be. And we also just hired a grant writer. It's nice to know you all did too, but we would like to work on some CARES Act, or indoor air quality assessment, to do some grant writing there, hopefully team together to do that. And then, based on what you all decide, look for funding. The timeline, I will say this, we want, should you decide to move forward, we want to do the lighting as soon as possible because that's a bulk of your energy savings. But as Craig mentioned, the switch gear is very important, and you have to have someone, electrical engineer, who works with us, and it's a 24-week lead time on that. So we're trying to do all the work over next summer when the students are not around, and we would have to, it's a very close timeline to do both high schools at the same time if you choose to do that. So we would have to hopefully start working prior to the kids, prior to June, and able to meet our timeline of getting everything done over the summer. And it's going to be close.
That would be on your timeline. That would mean that we would start the lighting project this winter if we follow this suggested timeline.
Yes, we would like to. The optimal time would be, during the holidays, and just get in and just start getting it done as quickly as possible. So you could start realizing your energy savings, some of your energy savings prior to HVAC systems being renovated too. We always want to work with, if you have to borrow the money, what that would look like so you don't have to be paying interest on that loan, that the savings that you're already generating pays for it. Now I'm getting into details. And Craig and I can answer, hopefully, any questions you have, or that was a lot.
Good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions while they're here? I know at the end of the agenda, I'll be making a recommendation for the board to consider so that we can stick to that timeline. But while they're here, are there any questions from anybody?
I just want to clarify one thing. Page 4.
Yes, sir.
It's a whole page of things, and then when you flip to page 5, you've taken some things out to get it down to 13.7.
And we added in that bipolar ionization and then the brick block patching.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
You're welcome. The front page, Train has an initiative. We do the BTU crew. It's actually approved curriculum in your state, and we have been doing it in the state of Indiana, and now are offering it across the country. But you all already have everything in place to do the BTU crew. But it's a Train initiative to drive STEM and use real life applications. So you actually use the equipment in the building, and bipolar ionization is included in it. So we have someone who does it, Dan Whistler. He's a retired teacher of 30 years, and he actually comes and does a workshop, teachers, and does the STEM program with them. So you use what we've put into the class, what we've put into your buildings as a teaching curriculum. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and said you was going to make some recommendations at the end. You want to go ahead and tackle that now?
Sure.
On that topic.
If it would please the board, I do recommend that we allow staff, meaning Melissa, myself, and the Train staff, pursue funding options for the project as presented this evening. As mentioned, it would be a combination of EESI as well as a potential bond effort. And if we're able to get that started now, we would shoot for taking this to the commission pending formal board approval and action here, and then take it up to the commission and make the presentation up there. So if it would please the board, I recommend that we move forward with pursuing funding options on the project as listed on page 5 with the omissions and the final list there of 13.7 million, which would allow staff to pursue some options to bring those back to you potentially before the end of this month, August, and then have a board action to then move forward with going into the commission meeting hopefully in September.
Okay. I don't feel like that's something that we need to take a vote on. Just get the feelings of the board to give some directive to Matt.
I'm good with it.
I just didn't want to pursue anything if there was any hesitancy to do so on the board's part.
Bob?
Yes.
Bob, what? Okay. All right. Well, I think the board is in agreement to let's look at some numbers and possibly, if you can get those figures together, we'll have a special call meeting so you can present that back to us.
Sure.